Hello and welcome to episode number 8 of Masters of MEDDICC. I'm here with Lucy Williams-Jones. Welcome, Lucy. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Great to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here as well, because this has been a very long time coming. I think I've been trying to get you on this show for maybe a year now, maybe even longer. I don't know if it's been that long.
It has been that long, and with COVID and lockdown, I think my answer was I need to get to the hairdressers first. So I finally got there. So happy days.
You got there. See, I don't have that excuse in my locker because, for obvious reasons. But well, I'm very, very glad you're here. And perhaps before we get started, I just want to start with something that stood out for me, and then maybe the reason as to why you and I got to know each other, which is, can you guess what it is, why it was that I first ever reached out to you, Lucy?
I would say because of my background with various PTC companies and my adoption of MEDDIC over the past 10 years.
Yes, that is kind of the start of it, but there was something in particular that really stood out for you. I'm not going to talk to you anymore with this. When I was researching the book, I was kind of down this rabbit hole, as you say, of like PTC alumni companies and some of those great organizations that are out there, because I was looking for people to kind of do some research with. And I stumbled, as you do, in those kind of LinkedIn rabbit holes of people also viewed and all that sort of stuff on LinkedIn profiles. I found your profile, and there was one thing that stood out for me, which was none other than back-to-back President's Clubs for, I think, like at the time it would have been like 19 years. Would that be right? I mean, you must have started in your sales career at the age of about 10 years old or something like that to be able to fit that many in. But so just tell us a little bit about yourself and your career, and I'm very excited to hear it.
Sure, absolutely. So as you know, and you made the point there around the President's Club. So I fell into tech when I was 18 years old, and it's probably one of the best decisions. I've made 3 great decisions in my career. The first one was not to go to university. So I was 18. I had a place at Manchester Met to do physiotherapy and sports therapy, and I decided to take a gap year so that I could see the world and live life a little bit before I buckled down into university. And then one of my very good friends, Richard Maguire, he's now emigrated to Oz actually, but he said, "Oh, guess what? We've got this role at Quest Software where, you can do part admin, part sales and see if you like it." So I was like, "Do you know what? The pay's great and I could learn some new stuff." So I was like, "Yeah, cool." I stayed there for 14 years. So, a quick dash. But so I joined in 23rd of October in 2000. So 22 years ago next week, I've been in the tech industry. Wow. And I joined it was before SDRs were really prevalent. So I joined as I did a bit of admin. I got the faxes when fax machines were a thing. And we put the orders, and I was also doing some outbound cold calling. And then within about 6 months, I actually just moved into an inside sales role where I stayed for about 2 years. And then through there, I just increased my kind of career progression. I became an AE, then an enterprise AE, that I specialized in systems integrators in local government because that was a booming market. And then I moved out to Ireland to manage the database unit for all the monitoring tools out in Cork, actually. So 14 years, long time to stay in one company, but it was probably one of the best and key moments in my career, right? Because not only did I make some amazing friends, but we grew up in it. So, we were there banging the calls at $80 a day because it was a numbers game back then. And it's when we got the yellow pages. I remember we got given a yellow pages and said, go sell Oracle database development tools. So that's what we did. And so
I have you like A to C, or was it like a free for all? People would just go for it.
It was actually done like that. So everyone wanted letter C because it was like they had the most in there. And no one wanted X because you had some really diverse companies. But no, we did. It was all it was just done like A to C or D to F, and we all used to sit in like a hot house. It was in Burnham in the Priory, and we all used to sit there. And Maria Kuna, who now I think is at ServiceNow, she was there, kind of geeing us up and saying, "Come on, let's get more calls, and we'd have the numbers on the board and you never want to be at the bottom.
No.
We made a great company even better, and that's when Vinnie Smith and Doug Garn were there, and they created a family under Simon Pearce, who was the MD of the UK, and we all grew up together. And now I look at all the people that I worked with back then, and they've all gone to numerous other companies. You've got people who are at Splunk, you've got people who are at Ping, but we are still really tight, and we've built that little community, and we all still talk. Two of my bridesmaids were from Quest, and a number of people at the wedding. So I spent 14 years there, and then I was living in Cork, and although I loved my time there, I wanted to come back to London. So I was thinking, well, what could I do? Do I get transferred back to work for Quest, who I'd been selling for 14 years, and thinking, database development tools, or do I take a new challenge? So I actually came back and did a short space at Couchbase, and they IPO'd last year, or actually only this year now with COVID, but yeah, only this year, which was a great experience. I spent about 10 months there and dipped my toe really in kind of MEDDIC, as you say, like they want to be a MEDDIC company, but did they truly live and breathe the playbook? I would maybe disagree. Mm-hmm. But I spent about 10 months there and then realized, databases may be a little bit boring, although the technology was great. And I got headhunted by a great recruiter who put me into BMC. And I think at that time is when my career changed. So I did BMC for about 2.5 years, selling monitoring again. So back to what I'd been doing at Quest. So it was my safe space, working with a number of large enterprise accounts, such as kind of like Vodafone, EDF Energy and HSBC. And I really loved it, and I learned so many things. I was very fortunate to kind of learn so much from many great leaders. I worked directly under Paul Cant. I was working with Steve Hamilton in the majors and under Don Darcy before he moved over to Mongo. And I learned so many amazing things. As a PTC MEDDIC company, they probably are one of the best at driving the playbook, actually outlining why MEDDIC is so important within a sales cycle. And from then I was just like, I'm never going to work for a non-MEDDIC company again.
Right. And have you ever found yourself in that sort of situation where you have been sort of courted by another company for an opportunity, and you said you would never go to a company that doesn't use MEDDIC? Have you kind of would you sort of find that in the decision? I guess like a decision criteria then, very on point, on topic, but for why you wouldn't go to a company then?
100%. So yeah, so I use your website actually because I know then who's all the MEDDIC companies. Hiring now, but yeah, absolutely. So I believe in the playbook like wholeheartedly, and my team now will talk about, I bang on about it all day long. And I think if you can follow that process to a T, you're going to be able to not only accelerate any sales cycles your own working, but give a great customer experience. And that's what the most important thing is, right? It's not all about getting a deal or closing a transaction off. It's about making sure that there's a fair exchange of value, and both organizations get that, and that's what the playbook allows.
Yeah, so, I love that. And I think that is, people often ask me, what's the thing that people most commonly get wrong about MEDDIC? And I think there's a lot of things. There are a lot of misconceptions, and usually find if you kind of dig into them, you usually find that the person has that misconception has not kind of fully looked into MEDDIC or even used it. But the one that I think stands strongest is this idea that MEDDIC is something that is anything but a good experience for the customer, when for me it's the complete contrary to that. It's totally, if you think back to where it originated from reverse engineering why customers buy and don't buy. So if that's your blueprint of we're going to create a framework that follows why customers are making positive decisions and negative decisions towards our solution, then you can only be right. So yeah, it's fascinating to hear you describe it like that. I love it.
Absolutely. So where was I? So I just left BMC. Oh, I went to Mongo. So Don Darcy, VP at BMC, went over to Mongo. Again, no SQL databases. I'd already dipped my toe in the water with Couchbase, but I was like, no, now's the time. And with everything, timing's important. So I moved over to Mongo, and again, learned some amazing tricks and traits from some great people like Devis Chiria, Cedric Pesh is over there, Don Darcy. So again, the real kind of PTC kind of way of working. And again, Mongo, second to none, run the playbook perfectly. And they're doing really, really, really well. And when I left there, although I was super excited about moving to Datadog, because monitoring is kind of as I said, my safe space. It's what I've been doing for a long time. I also leave behind so many kind of fond memories of like how we would sit in war rooms, and you think war rooms are things for when incidents go down in organizations, but how do we transact and how do we build something that's going to give that customer so much value, the likes of UBS or the likes of, again, HSBC. So I left Mongo, and that was in the December 2018, and I joined Datadog on the 11th of January 2019. I always leave end of years. I never have like the summer off. How everyone gets garden leave and then they get like a month off in the sun? Mine's always at Christmas, because I always then start the new year. So so I started on the 11th, 2019. I've been there coming up 3 years this year. I did 2.5 years as an IC, so looking after a number of strategic accounts. And then more recently, 6 months ago, I got promoted to one of the regional directors over there as well. So again, under Patrick Schwanstrom, PTC Legends, and working now across, I've got a team of 6 enterprise reps who look into the kind of enterprise accounts within the UK and Ireland. Yeah,
well, first off, I know I've said this to you before, but for the podcast, congratulations on the promotion. I know that's very well deserved. Also, I think it's always a challenging thing to do, is to step up to manage to run the team that you used to be a part of. So that in itself, the fact that I know you guys are kind of hit the ground running, I should say, even though you've had to. How many new people have you had to hire?
So I've hired 5 new people from my team specifically, but across Datadog UK, we're hiring really aggressively to handle the growth. We've got 3 teams now at the moment. Each of them are going to have 6 people in each, and then we'll be looking to grow out again. I think again next year, right? The market is booming, especially in Datadog world. So it's really exciting.
How have you found?
Go on.
I was going to say, how have you found the recruiting process? What's that been like to sort of start hiring people and getting into that?
So I actually really enjoyed the recruiting side, because it's kind of like a sales process, and I know that I'm kind of engineered as a salesperson deep down. I had a very specific kind of wish list of what I was looking for, and I think I've achieved that. I'm super happy with my team, and I've got a real mixture. But one of the fundamental things that they all have is a MEDDIC, command of the message, playbook background. Whether they've used it extensively before or not, they're all aware of it. And another qualification methodology, like you've got MAN or BAN or MANTRAP, we used to have like 20 years ago. It's primarily the same, right? But it's just not as structured. So I found the recruitment really interesting. I'm really enjoying the ramping. So I've got 5 new hires right now who have been in the business either 30, 60, 90 days, and trying to get them ramped as quickly as possible so they can start providing those values to customers ASAP is like super, super important to me.
Yeah, I love that. I was reading an article that you did recently, and it talked about the 3 traits that you look for, which I thought was really nice, which was, I think if I remember it rightly, and correct me if I'm wrong, number 1 was coachability, which is, you and I are, that's one of the traits I look for as well. I think that's in our game of sales where you never ever stop learning, right? That's right. That's got to be number 1 for me. I also like that you said high EQ, and I'd love to come back to that in a second, just to talk about, what things you look for and what you class as high EQ and where you see that sort of place. And then the one that just stood out was the affinity for pipeline generation. And I think that is so true. And if you're anything like me, it'd be interesting to hear whether you see this the same. I've never, ever known an elite salesperson that didn't have an affinity for pipeline generation. They may do it differently. They may find, other means and tactics and strategies, but they get that top of the funnel working for them. Would you say your experience is similar?
100%. You live and die by pipeline. So you need to put as much in the top as possible. Good, well-qualified pipeline, follow the playbook, bring it through, and you'll be successful.
Yeah.
I was reading an article, I think it was on LinkedIn yesterday, and I can't think who said it. So if anyone's listening and it was you, it was around the fact that an SDR was doing 20% of their work, but they still hit their numbers because it was 20% good outreach. My answer is like, imagine if you did 100% or 80%, like if you turn that on its head, like how much more you'd be able to achieve. So at the end of the day, this is this numbers game, right? But if you can put good qualified pipe in and you do your research, you book good discovery meetings, you pass them through into being a great new business meeting, and you go into that sales process, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. And that's on yourself. That comes down to work ethic. You did nail my three. It's coachability, it's intelligence, EQ and IQ, I think are as important. And it's experience, but with a really, really big, heavy PG mindset. Because we know that new logos are the lifeblood of any organization, especially an organization like ours, right? We want to make sure that we're landing new customers and we're growing them and we're giving value for exactly what we need to do. So there's lots of ways you can test. But when I was an IC, going back, to last year, I used to love the PG side of it. That was like, give me an account, let me get my coloured markers out and figure out who's who in the zoo, who do I need to contact, what their messaging is, what spokes do I need to go after. I absolutely loved it. And I'm trying to instill that now in the team, right? Slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Put the work in at the front end of the funnel, because if you do the right things early, the rest will follow. Whereas, you have some people that rush the front and then think, oh, everything will happen. And it doesn't, right? Because there's flaws. They haven't outlined decision criteria ahead of going into a POV. And then they're surprised when the POV doesn't close.
Yeah.
Or they've not identified actually what an EB cares about before going into POV. So they've done this great POV and the EB comes and goes, well, I'm not signing that because it doesn't do anything that I need it to do.
Right.
So, I think you need to make sure you put high quality in, and then you're going to get high quality out.
Yeah. And I think that loops back to what you were just saying about that post you read on LinkedIn about the SDR that was doing, 20% of their work was, what was it? 20% that was flowing through, of their pipeline. I think the point there is, if we analyze, I'm sure if we looked into that 20%, there would be a commonality across the pipeline that did progress, that it had all of those things you were talking about. The way that which you just described how you used to do pipeline generation is, for me, is how elite salespeople do it. They're taking the perspective of what's in it for the customer here. How can I help the customer, and who will care? And, further than that, different people will care about different things, which is, what you talked about there with the economic buyer coming in and having a different perspective. And it's that perspective of saying, right, we are selling a broad solution that does a lot of different areas of value and those different areas of values will score differently for different people inside this organization. How do we map that out? How do we catch the attention? And that, for me, going back to your really great point about that SDR doing the 20%, is if you zoom in onto that 20% and then expand out. So, like you say, slow things down to speed things up, or focus on quality over quantity. You just start to get this proliferation of success, and that flywheel starts to spin up, right? And that's how there's no coincidence, right? That, many people listening to this, they could take a kind of a view of you talking about those great people you've mentioned, kind of name checks you've made. And you say, well, there's only a reason why those people gravitate around together. It's because they have success together. And it's not, it's not some sort of club. It's because they've been successful together and they kind of bring good talent with them. And if you want to get in on that kind of opportunity, then you kind of have to focus on the stuff that you were saying, right?
And it's learned behavior, right? I don't think it's like you're born with it.
Yeah.
In the sales process, and that evolution of, the founders of PTC and then, blowing it down. It is a learned process, but you've got to be open. And one of the things I say to, we had our QBR last week, and the one thing I kept saying is you've got to be open and embrace the sales process, because if you do, it will see you well. If you don't and you close down, it won't. Or if you try and cut corners. Right. I've had people previously try and cut a corner out, and I'm just like, that will come back and bite you. And guess what? It did. So it's not about me saying, oh, I told you so. It's more about follow the sales process, follow the playbook. Every organization, whether you're Mongo, Datadog, BMC, the playbook is theoretically the same with some slight tweaks. I'm sure they evolve more and more. especially depending on like the technicality of the product, or if it's more of a show and tell product, for example, like maybe you don't need to do big, massive technical workshops, but believe in the process. And if you believe in the process, good things will come. And that's it. And, I'm such a firm believer of that. And, I've read John's book a number of times, obviously your book, love it. And I don't think you're ever too old to learn a new skill, and embrace like a new way of working, and it could change your life, right?
Yeah. And I want to just, something you said there really struck a chord with me about being open. I don't know if you found it the same as I have, but if I think about the most elite salespeople I've ever worked with, and I've had the great privilege to work with some people that, are truly elite. And one thing that they all have in common is that they are the most open people in my experience about where they are with deals, where they're, and they're the first ones to put their hand up and say, you know what, this isn't a deal, or I'm losing here, or how's your year going? Not great, haven't really got much on. Whereas the opposite of those elite salespeople, they're always talking everything up. They're like, and I think what I've reflected on this a lot, because I try to kind of get to the bottom of it, and I think it comes back to this kind of this confidence in your ability. And that is in its own self as a salesperson, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you are that elite salesperson and you walk into an opportunity and you can see, via your gut, but also via using a qualification framework like MEDDIC, you can see that for whatever reason, whether it's there's not enough pain, whether it's not enough enthusiasm with the customer, maybe you haven't got access to the right stakeholders, whether the customer doesn't have any kind of idea of what the process can be. If you can see those things as that elite salesperson and say, you know what, I'm gonna, as you said earlier, slow these things down to speed it up, and that slowing down might be trying to qualify out, right? Then the reaction that the customer sees in that is, wow, this person's not prepared to waste their time here. They must be really busy. They must have a lot of value behind them. So therefore, maybe I should be interested. Whereas the flip of that is where like you have these salespeople that are almost trying to like grab at, clutch at straws. You get into this like rut where the customer finds them like, desperate almost. And we know what that kind of, how that comes across in all frames of life. If someone is trying to get your attention, they appear desperate. That's a really bad thing. So I love what you said there about being open. I think that's like a really nice way of describing it.
Yeah, I think as well, so if I think about a sales process and moving through, I like to call it gates, when do you close one gate off and then go into the next gate? We spend far too little time, as typically as sellers, right? When I was an IC, let me go back to my IC days, I'd be like, yeah, someone's told me they've got a problem. I know we can solve it. Let's move on to a demo or a new business meeting. But actually, I'm encouraging my team now to spend as much time as possible in discovery mode to make that new business meeting so impactful before they close that gate and move on to the next step. Because can you really gauge that much pain out of a 30-minute call? You might get a tech stack, you might understand what they're trying to do, but do you fundamentally understand what impact that has on the business? Who cares about that within the business? Actually, if the platform went down, what would that implication be to XYZ? So yeah, I'm really encouraging my team now to stay very much in the discovery stage for as long as they need to. And you might have one call that you hear everything, highly unlikely, and then move through into that new business meeting to really be able to kind of showcase the challenges and do the demo that's so specific to what they're trying to fix. It makes it a no-brainer. We were in engagement recently, last quarter, where we had a massive kind of, pat on the back saying that, it was competitive, but from a vendor standpoint, the fact that we took time to explain the challenges, why we think we were the right fit for the project, and how we could do it and how we do it differently, that set us apart already from any of the other vendors that were in that race as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something, it's so funny how, because I think one of the reasons, because in our sales career, we generally speaking, not always, but we generally kind of start as we're junior salespeople selling, higher velocity sales, quicker moving sales, smaller deal values. And, the cycles are therefore shorter, and we kind of we sort of learn that the further we get on, the more likely we are to close the deal. And I think that teaches us the wrong thing, that it's good to get to a next stage. Because if you're at stage, let's say you move from stage 1 to stage 2, then your deal's more likely to get to stage 3 because you're already at stage 2. And I think that's a common misconception, because what you're effectively saying there that you do with your team, which I completely agree with, and I think is a really nice way you articulated it, is let's spend more time in 1, because that will get us through 2, 3, 4, and 5 probably much quicker. And I really like that way of looking at it. And I think that's something that I think we're all guilty of in our industry, of trying to measure success based on progression rather than, we measure success based on where we are in the sales process in terms of stages, rather than like how much value are we here, how much pain are we solving? And I'm sure I don't know about you, maybe it's a good question. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a pipeline full of stage 5 deals, or at the same amount of stage 1 and 2 deals? But I'm going to tell you, those stage 1 and 2 deals have twice the amount of pain that you can solve as the stage 5 deals. I think if I phrased it to you like that, you would probably answer. You tell me how you'd answer.
So I'm really passionate about this, and if Tony and Patrick are listening, I don't hold me to this, but I'm really confident that when we're engaged, because we follow the process correctly, we give a good customer experience, that all of the transactions potentially that we're working on are solid, right? I don't put crap in pipeline. It's one of my worst. It's one of my pet hates. Yeah. Like, don't just fill up the pipeline because you think it looks better on your leading indicators or your metrics. Like, I want good quality pipeline because we know it's going to then run through. It helps with resourcing as well, right? There's nothing worse than, my SE director who pings me and says, "Really? These notes, are they real?" And I'm just like, yeah, they are. And I try and make excuses, but now I don't make excuses. I'm just like, go back and find out the answers before we even get technical resource involved, for example. But I'd rather a pipeline of strong, qualified opportunities where we're solving customer pain. We've got the customer buy-in. We've got a potential champion that's been identified who's going to, I love champions, by the way, but I've got a potential champion that's going to take us through, and we've got the right decision criteria that we know we can win. Again, like, if it's a use case that we're not going to hit, I'd rather just qualify out. But I love your sign behind you. I need to get one for the office.
Yeah, I should start selling them, shouldn't I? Put them on the MEDDIC.com/shop/nobody regrets qualifying out neon light for those listening on the podcast.
You could have made your Datadog t-shirt whilst you're holding it.
Yeah, I'd look like I'm holding it up. There we go. Get the Datadog t-shirt in. This is very high quality, by the way. If this is as good as the software is, then let me tell you, this is a good cotton, I would say.
Well, I don't think it's cotton, and apparently we have the best quality t-shirts in the industry.
Whoa, that's a claim. Like that almost feels like, when you have like these shows where there becomes a theme, and I'm gonna have to, maybe that becomes a theme of the show. To be on the show, you have to gift me a t-shirt, and then I'm gonna start a league table of soft. What is the measure? What's the technical decision criteria of a Datadog t-shirt? What makes you say it's the best?
The quality of the fabric. They wash really, really well, and the front logo never washes off.
Does it not? Yeah,
no.
Okay.
You try it. If you wear it more often and then wash it more often, you're going to see how great quality it is.
That's just you trying to get me to do some advertising around the Cambridgeshire village that I live in. If you start getting inquiries from, retired farmers and things like that for some Datadog, it's me.
And I'll even chuck you a hat. If you wear it 10 times, I'll get you a hat as well.
Okay, cool. Hey, what's that? Like, I'm looking. I can see in the background there. I can see the paperweights. They look to me like they might be some sort of award, I should say. Is that what they are? I'm going to guess.
They are the President's Club Lucite Spheres.
Okay. For what company?
For Datadog.
Okay.
Because obviously we didn't have clubs. So we've got 2019 and 2020.
Okay.
Light spheres. They're very heavy. Great as a paperweight.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we got given a vest as well.
Okay. Instead of the vacation?
Well, no one can travel anywhere.
Okay.
So yeah, they've done some other stuff, but I think next year, obviously, hoping the world will return to normal and we can all get together again.
Okay. I have a friend that won President's Club as an SE, and he was very upset because they sent him like a backpack, and it was supposed to be like a Bahamas week long trip or something like that. So he'll feel better knowing that he's not the only one that got kind of paperweighted or backpacked. So yeah.
Backpack last year, that was great. They're all Patagonia though, so it's great quality. Again, t-shirts.
I don't know.
I think I've still got my backpack or my wheelie case from my first ever club that I went to in 2001.
I think I'm going to speak for everyone listening here that I think as much as I do love Patagonia and backpacks and all that sort of stuff, I prefer the vacation. I'm just going to say, but yeah, well done. Well done. That's very good. Very good.
So COVID was you've got to be grateful that we're all here, right? So at least I'm here to receive my.
Yeah. And you had COVID, right? But not, I think it's funny, not funny, obviously, but it's interesting now how, because people are vaccinated, it seems like a lot of people are catching COVID and not having such severe reactions, but you were very ill, right? You were very poorly. I
was. And I think, maybe I had an epiphany, but that was kind of what made me transfer from, thinking, I'll be an IC going into leadership. So yeah, I got sick in January when the real spate of it was around, when I think everyone was getting it. And I'd recently moved up to the Cotswolds, so didn't know anyone. So I wasn't going out. It wasn't like I was in the pubs and nightclubs.
Of the Cotswolds.
The Cotswolds. So so it was either the builder or the Ocado man. It was one of those two that gave it to me. My husband didn't get it. But yeah, I was really poorly. So from kind of January 7th until early February, really, really sick. And then there was a spate of around a week where I really thought I was just like, don't want to go to hospital. They were like, we're going to come and take you. And I was like, no, I'm staying here. It was when everyone was there and they were just getting rolled over. And I just said, look, I want to just try and fight it at home. So I had like the NHS and the district nurse kind of minding me and checking in. And my oxygen went to about 82. Which was really hard, to breathe and stuff. But for about 4 days, I was kind of laying there and I was thinking, gosh, if anything did happen to me, I'd only ever really be known for being a salesperson.
Well, hang on a minute, like 20-time President's Club back to back. That's pretty impressive. But I sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That not just a salesperson.
You know what? I've learned so much from so many people over my 22 years, right? So, the likes of Adam Quartermain, who's now at Sprinkler. You've got Don Darcy, who's at Mongo. You've got Cedric, who's at Mongo. Paul Cannon, who's still at BMC. Jason Andrew, Patrick. I've learned so much from so many amazing people. I want to just kind of instill that on others. And that's what made me change. So as soon as I got better, I rang my boss, Tony, and said, you've been asking me, do I want to move into management role? I've always gone, no, it's too scary. I just want to stay doing what I know because I manage my own diary. I know what I'm doing. And then it hit me and I was like, do you know what? I've got so much knowledge and so much passion, especially for females in tech. We're very undiversified, I guess, or underrepresented. So I wanted to really make a difference. And I said to Tony, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And, I'm very lucky that I've got such a great management team around me and great peers around me who can help me on this journey because quite frankly, going from an IC to director is it's a whole new world. What I cared about before, I care about now, but 6 times over. So I'm lucky with the likes of Dan, who's one of my peers. We work really, really closely together and we're on the same page when it comes to the playbook and MEDDIC. But yeah, I wanted to take that knowledge that I've learned and try and get other people to live their best life, I guess. And, if you follow the playbook, it could change your life financially, but also, professionally and personally, right? There's nothing more than I love is getting a transaction over the line, but not only for the financial rewards, but also for, the customer. And some of the champions that I've met over the years, I'm really, really good friends with now.
Right. And that's
Instagram, Facebook. If I'm in London, we can we go out for drinks and, they're people that I worked with maybe 10, 15 years ago.
And the beauty there is probably, there's obviously a personal connection. You get on well with these people, and that goes without saying. But there's probably something in which they, whilst we're talking here, one of your champions might be on, a relating podcast to their industry, talking about, some of the success they've had, the same way you're talking about some of the success you've had, and they'll probably reflect back on some of the solutions that you've worked on them with that have made them successful. And that comes back to, that vested interest part of a champion. They're the best salespeople out there, whether you realize what you're doing or not with those champions that you're now close with, is because you found a personal connection with them where you were able to, whether you realize you were doing it or not. Some people, sometimes we do it proactively, sometimes we do it subconsciously, but we tap into the drivers that drive and motivate that person. And that's what makes us good champion builders, because we can kind of align ourselves to their direction, what they want to get. And, as we know, every champion's different. Some, I always use the example. There's a guy, really lovely guy, works for Selfridges, who, for those, I think most people know because of the show with Jeremy Piven on it, but it's a large department store in London. And I think he's worked there sort of 20 odd years or something like that. Now, if you took the same champion building approach as I would to some other champions I've had who are like super career hungry and they want to like just get the next big job on, in front of them. I took that to that person's never leaving Selfridges. So, it's about tapping into those things. So I love that, you mentioned that. One of the things I'm really interested about is, what have been your learnings from going from an individual contributor to a leader? And if you perhaps a different angle on that could be some things that you would do differently, with the hindsight in mind.
Oh, that's a really good question. It's going to be one of those moments where you have to cut it, because
I'm sure, right?
I can see the answer. So I think when I was, so everyone at Datadog, let's take Datadog as an example, because that's where I know it. So everyone at Datadog, when they join, goes through an onboarding, which is great enterprise scale onboarding, really well received the first week. When I joined, it was in person in Boston. Obviously, they're not in person right now because of COVID. But what I wanted to do is I put myself in the shoes of, if I was doing my time again at Datadog, what would I need in my toolkit to go and be successful more quickly? What would I need to ramp more quickly? Because a typical enterprise salesperson ramps in maybe about 6 to 9 months. So I had this dream of making my reps ramp or my AEs ramp in 4 to 5 months. So decreasing that ramp by maybe 50%, because then obviously I've hired them all this year. They'll be ready to go all guns blazing in January. So for me, I've tried to put with every interaction that I do, I try to put my IC hat on and then try and give the guidance from that standpoint. Start with the why. I read an article recently. It was like the words you don't write in a Slack. I need, I want, etc. I don't need anything, but the reason why I'm asking for it is because it's going to help you do X, Y, Z. So again, laying that out is really important. Setting the scene early on the playbook. So one of the first things after the first week is I go through the playbook with the team, talking about each of the different gates, how it aligns to MEDDIC in each stage of the playbook, and then when you should exit and say, do you know what, this isn't for us, let's move on. I work with a guy called Nick Hewitt, and he is the best person ever at getting on an initial discovery call and being able to qualify in or out super quickly. And he does it in such a great way that actually you're like, do you know what, fair play, I'm not wasting your time and I'm not wasting my time. It's that, again, that fair exchange of value.
And what does he do? What does he do to make it so effective?
So he obviously asks how everyone is on the call, but he will get straight to the chase. These are the 3 challenges that Datadog solves. This is how you would potentially do it today, like bring old tools with you, or you would use open source or use native. These are the aftermath. This is what would happen if you do that. Are you doing any of those 9 things? And then if they say, well, actually, we're not. Okay, cool. Let's see you later. But, typically, Datadog is fit for 3 things. It's building out a CCOE, adopting a DevOps mentality, or migrating to cloud. They're the kind of key 3 areas that we would try and attach to. But I don't think there's anything wrong with if you got on a discovery call and you asked those questions and they went, do you know what, we're not. We're all in data centers. We've got no no dreams or aspirations to put an SRE or a DevOps model in place, then politely say, do you know what, we're not great. Let's just kind of draw a line under it, and maybe in another world or another time we'll work together. But he's amazing at that, and I think we're often too scared of saying no as a salesperson. We want to hold on to anything, like, oh yes, someone's speaking to me, someone said yes, and then it's like, oh, but actually we could waste all this time, both customer and our time, by the way. It's not all about us, it's about customer, but we could waste a customer's time promising we could do something and we can't. So I would say qualify out early, be strong and believe in what you're doing at discovery stage. If you need to spend longer in discovery stage, do it, and then follow the playbook, because if you follow the playbook, you'll be super successful.
Yeah, and I think I think it goes back to what we were saying a bit earlier about the chap in as you say, his name is Nick.
Yeah,
with Nick there. So much, I bet, is not entirely about what he says, but it's almost like the persona that he comes to the table with when he's saying it, and the customer kind of seeing that this is a person that is clearly trying to understand, is there not just value for themselves, because that's obviously the big difference. It's not just, is there a deal here for me? It's, hey, is there enough of a opportunity for it to be worth our while to engage in what could be, as I'd imagine in an organization like Datadog, probably 90 days on average of our time to run through an evaluation process. And why would you enter into that if you thought that there wasn't going to be an opportunity at the outset?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, it does come for the customer as well, though, right? Because we don't want to lead people down the garden path of, we can do that, and actually, knowing hearts of hearts that we're maybe not the right fit. I think that's really important, and that then shows very early on if you've got that champion or how you're building that relationship, because they think, you know what, this guy or girl is being really honest with me, and that's the kind of relationship, and it sets the tone for the engagement moving forward as well. Being sharp, succinct, and I've learned a load from Nick. So I first met him when I was at Datadog, but he'd been at AppD and BMC actually, but our paths never crossed at BMC. But I've learned loads from him since I've been there, just in a different style. Because maybe I'm too nice sometimes, and I've learned the hard way, right? So it's amazing. Yeah,
it's interesting though, because I don't think this is one of the things that I talk about a lot with MEDDIC, which is that it's your own style, your own personality that overlays on the top of what you do is yours. And that's, I don't think any framework, methodology, or anything like that should try and change you for being you, because ultimately people do buy from people. There are obviously other elements that go into it, but at the end of the day, it's very, very, very seldom that someone will buy from someone they don't like or trust, right? And so therefore it's really important you have that kind of persona. So when you say you're too nice, probably there might be some deals that Nick will win, or actually I should say time that Nick will save, because you might not push as hard as he will, but there'll also be, I'm sure it will balance itself out. There'll be some deals that you win that Nick might not win, because they feel like he might have been a bit too firm with the odd one personality that will think, okay, actually Lucy was really very sort of open with us and we learned from her. And so I feel it always balances itself out. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like MEDDIC and MEDDIC so much, is because it does sit underneath your personality, underneath your style, as kind of that extra layer of intelligence almost, that you can kind of refer to and say, well, I think this person's a champion, but let's look at the evidence. I think this is the decision criteria, but let's look at the evidence that's down here. And then you can kind of pivot and change direction if the MEDDIC evidence is overwhelming your gut or anything like that. So I think that's one of the things I'm always really keen to point out, because I think sometimes, particularly if you think about some of the methodologies out there, with a very good methodologies like Challenger Sale. Challenger says there's 4 types of salesperson, right? And it says you should be this one, which is the challenger. What if you're one of the other 3? It's asking you to change, and that might be the right thing to do. But as a salesperson, I'm having to say, right, I'm going to have to change the way I talk to customers. And that can sometimes be a step on top of many other steps salespeople are trying to make. And that's I'm on my soapbox a bit for MEDDIC now, but the beauty of MEDDIC is it's not going to ask you to change. It's just going to give you that framework to kind of point you in the right direction, which I think is why we know and love it so much.
I think, and that's one thing on coming back to hiring. Like, I would encourage all of my team to bring their ideas to work. Like, we don't want to create robots. We want everyone to bring their own flair, their own ideas, and how they do things. And also, like, they're there for a reason. They've been successful. They know what they're doing. So don't think you have to change to actually be that robotic.
Yeah.
Like, be yourselves, because as you say, people buy from people. And just be yourself, because, you know, it's very important. We don't want to have just like a machine of like spitting out like enterprise AEs doing exactly the same things.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the case.
Yeah, indeed. So I had complaints from people because in the earlier episodes, I'd always ask the question of what is your favorite, or what do you think is the most important part of MEDDIC? And the last couple of episodes, I didn't ask it, and people complained. People want to hear, Lucy. People want to know what you think is the most important part of MEDDIC.
What, by a letter? Yeah,
it's like picking one of your favorite children, isn't it?
I don't have children, but yeah, it would be. I've got a dog. Yeah. So my favorite, or the one that I believe that you won't ever get a deal done without, is champion. So I would say I'm going to go with champion. Now, I think all the letters and all of the components of MEDDIC are as important as one another. But I think if you don't have a champion, you're not going to get a deal, because there's no one selling for you when you're not there. There's no one to take you and sponsor you to that EB. There's no one that can tell you about decision criteria or the process. So I would safely say champion, closely probably followed by so pain, underpinned by metrics, because metrics is going to be what the EB cares about. They all tie in together. Like, you can't make me pick. But if it was one, it would be champion, because back in the day, like that part of the process of, you know, going for lunches, dinners and stuff like that, like that was how you built champions. You know, they say that champions are built on the golf course. My handicap is crap. So mine weren't built on the golf course. But no, I think champions are super important. And as I said, like, I've got friends now that you know, I worked with 10 years ago, who I still speak to, and, you know, if there's anything that he needs, like ever, Pete Felton, I'll give him the name, Pete Felton, he works for Wells Fargo now, but I met him when I was at BMC and I was working on JP Morgan, and you know, he'll always have us top of mind because he knows the value that we gave last time. So yeah, he always comes back. So yeah, it's amazing, really.
It is amazing, and I think what you're talking about there is someone that recognizes you as a person that can not just deliver value, but can deliver value from yourself rather than just your solution. So, you know what I mean? And I think that's a really big part of modern sales, is that, you know, the most elite sales people out there, they're seen as, you know, consultants by their customers, by their prospects. They're not seen as salespeople. They're seen as people that come in and provide a very, you know, consultative approach of value-driven conversations. And I think that's a really that will be what that person sees, you know, as well as, you know, having a nice time talking to you and all that sort of stuff. They'll see you as a person that they can trust and will learn from when they engage with you, which is great. And then I love what you said there around all those different things you were talking about. You need a champion to do, and I think that's absolutely spot on. I think as well, in particular, when the going gets tough, as it inevitably will in a deal, that's, you know, anytime you have a price objection, stakeholder objection, competitors kind of taking the lead, all of those things that happen in our deals all the time, all of the, if you measure all of the ways that, or if you follow all of the routes you want to take to overcome those objections, it's very hard to overcome those objections with the standard routes without having that champion. So I do tend to agree. I'm always conflicted by this thing where it's like, you won't be able to find a real champion if you're not helping them solve a real pain. So I'm always a bit chicken and egg with that one. But
I don't agree. I'm not sure I agree with that, because you might have instances. So let's say you've got a really, really strong champion that has moved from organizations, and they may not have the pain right now because they don't know, or let's just take Datadog, they've not migrated to the cloud yet. Yeah. But they know when they do, they're going to have these pains, and they still reach out to you even though there's nothing to go live now, because you've helped them previously. So I do think in the initial, when you're building those champions early days, that the pain is super important, because you want to make sure that, you know, professionally it helps them. Personally, there's always something in it for a champion, right? Whether it be promotion, getting their head above the parapet, making sure they don't get calls at 4 a.m. in the morning because something's gone wrong, getting that work-life balance back. But without having pain, you wouldn't get that. But then a champion will continue and continue going for you, right? And so I don't necessarily think that in all aspects you need the pain will link to the champion, especially if you've sold with them before. And if they're a true champion, you'll probably sell to them multiple times in your career, depending on where you've gone. But that is, for me, that is like the epicenter of MEDDIC. If you could have like MEDDIC around the outside, the C for me, the champion would always be in the middle, because you're never going to get to an EV unless you've got, well, you could, but you probably piss them off, right?
Yeah.
If you went to an EV without letting your champion know, like I'm a firm believer of making sure that you go up the tree correctly. Don't go and like knock people or go above people's heads. I did it once. It was horrendous, and it caused a lot of problems. And one of my big beliefs is like use your champions to navigate the org, because they're there to do that for you. And if they're not taking you there, there's a reason. So then I'd have a question mark about whether actually there's something real to be had. Right.
And this all comes back to the work that you talked about that you do right at the beginning, which is who's who in the zoo, mapping out that process, trying to really get a feel for who's into what, who cares about what, who's impacted by what, who's motivated by what, and all those things, which is elite level selling, which is why, you've had the success you have and that kind of stuff. So I love that you can just tell by the way you're thinking about this. And I'm sure the listeners are picking up on this too. It's, you're so in the zone when you're thinking about these deals of how can I attach value and to this scenario, how can I ensure that the value resonates with the person that you're working with? That's that it kind of works very, 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 very succinctly in moving deals forward, or not, because sometimes there's just not enough value, and we know what that means. We qualify out.
The biggest thing for me as well, like if I've got a champion, my competitor's probably got a champion.
Mm-hmm.
So I take the greatest pleasure of identifying who the competitor's champion is and converting them.
Oh.
That's my favourite. And then getting like my existing champion and the new champion in a room, and then it's all like happy families. But you'll bet your bottom dollar that if you've got someone that you're working with, there'll be, one of your competitors will potentially have a champion they're working with. And then it's kind of like, well, who's got more influence?
Yeah.
Who's got more power? Who's got more authority? Who's going to like step out of their comfort zone to actually fight for you? But in an ideal world, you'd want everyone to be your champion, but that's not ever going to be the case. So then it's like, how do you diffuse and how do you leverage your champion to be more powerful than the other one is what I would say.
Yeah, and this is all where the beauty of the other parts of MEDDIC that you're talking about come into play. What's the vested interest? What's the breaking it down, the decision criteria, so you can kind of make sure, as you said earlier, what you do differently or better than the other alternatives on the table. So yeah, this is
planning, right? Like I've made out of your book, I've made like a really cool deal sheet for my team to use to like track their track their deals through. And we've actually got a specific piece on champion planning in there. I learned back probably, BMC days, right, when, I really got into this whole sales process, that you need to identify, you need to build, you need to test, and you need to use a champion. And there's nothing like, it is what it is. But the identification piece is going to be really, really key. And again, stay really long there if you need to make sure that they are the right person, because they may seem like one on the surface and then actually they're not. So right. The identification piece and the building piece are probably the two most important pieces. And if you do that well, the rest will be easier. So again, put everything front end, like loads of time, loads of considered care, and the rest will follow. The same on champions. You want to make sure you identify them right, you build them correctly, and you give them value. It's all about fair exchange of value.
Right.
And when it comes to using them, it should be second to none. I've got one guy that I work with at Vodafone, and I remember we were online. It was the last day of financial year. It was when I was at BMC, and it was 10:59 because we were booking over in Amsterdam, so it was 11:59.
Yeah,
and we were in Slack trying to get the PDF. Like, thank God we don't have fax machines anymore.
Yeah.
When I first started out, we'd all wait around the fax machine in the office on the last day of the month. Thank God it's all like remote now with DocuSign, but yeah, a champion would go above and beyond at 10:59 on the last day of the year to get you that transaction over the line.
Yeah, and that's the last bit that you
for it, right? and say thank you so much. And it was like teamwork. We did it together. And that's a really great, a great happy ending to the story. That it wasn't just that, I needed him because I'd committed it to my business. He had also committed it to his business and the value that he was going to get from it. So it worked both ways, and we both fought to get that in. And it came in with like 30 seconds to spare, I think, because it has a timestamp on it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Those are the stories that, I always, you say these sorts of things in your teams. I'm sure you do this, when you're sort of getting your team psyched up for a quarter end or even a quarter in itself. And you say, like, there are moments that we will probably make in this quarter that will live with us for the rest of our careers. And hopefully we'll be sat around a bar talking about what a great outcome they were down the line. And that is exactly an example of one of them. And I think one of the things you said there just on the end that really stuck out for me was you were talking about the different sort of stages of a champion. The one at the end was using your champion. I think that's something actually that we as an industry don't necessarily, we know about the focus on the building, the testing and all that sort of stuff, but actually putting them into bat, using them. I've had a sales team in the past where I kind of had to do a session on like saying, hey, as much as we often end up friends with our customers, that's not what we're here for. We're not trying to make friends. And, in your example of, the ones, you've got friends that are champions that are friends now. In one case, a time where I not only thought I'd lost this person as a friend, but I thought I'd lost the deal because I had to kind of be very firm with them, actually went on to buy from me another couple of times in my career as well. So I think that idea of really using them is something we shouldn't forget. That's definitely a part there. It's no point just having the person sort of hoping that they're out there working for us, but actually coaching them and kind of putting them into play.
Share decks, share ideas, share the meeting, like take them to the EB meeting, right? Because they're going to be saying what a great job that person's done to date. Okay. You're going to be giving them the accolade of like, it's amazing. Like, we're here because of this person. And now actually this is what we want to understand from you. So yeah, I think, champions, hands down, for me, most important. And I remember John Darcy used to say, that would be in our forecast, be like, no champion, no deal. And that's it. And that it stuck with me forever. And it's true. And I've tried to navigate the process and think, actually, I can do this without a champion.
Oh. No, never. Just before we wrap up, because we run out of time, just for those listening, because there'll be a ton of people listening that haven't had the opportunity to work at a company to do things the way that Datadog do with POVs. Could you give us like a 2-minute overview of what that process is, how it works for Datadog and other companies you may have worked at that use it? Because there'll be a lot of people listening thinking, what's that process and how can we embrace it?
Well, the sales process.
The POVs, the way you do the proof of value.
Sorry, yes, absolutely. So, as I said, playbook company, we want to make sure that we follow it. So we've done a great discovery. We spent a lot of time there. We've moved into an amazing new business meeting where we've articulated the challenges, how Datadog are going to fit and how they're going to help. And then we get agreement that we're going to move to a POV. Amazing. It's what everyone wants to hear. First of all, we make sure we meet with the EB before any POVs are done. And then we go through a very structured process of ensuring that all of the criteria that we need to hit within that POV is documented and forms part of the decision criteria. We use our unique differentiation to make sure that we're pushing those towards that decision criteria to make sure that we win. And then we've got hands-on. So we work really, really closely with our SC team. We've got some really talented guys and girls actually over here. And they're very stringent on owning the technical champion side again. So they're building their own champions as they go. And the POV, we can do a POV in 3 to 4 weeks. At the end of it, we play back. So there's a number of touch points throughout, which is all kind of gearing around collecting more metrics, ensuring that the decision criteria is correct, making sure that we are reviewing competition and like where we can do it better, making sure we align to the pain, but making sure that the champion gets a win at the end of it. We then do a POV playback and typically then enter into commercials. Now, a POV, like I've done POVs before with other big organizations that have maybe lasted 3 to 6 months. At the end of the day, I don't know if you need that long, however complicated your software is, right, or your hardware or whatever. A POV is proof of value. You're proving the value that they're going to get for the pain that they've got. It's not about technology really, like bits and bytes or functions and features. It's about what can we give as an organization to you that's going to solve that high level pain. and some metrics off the back of it.
I love it. Thank you very much for that, because I think I love the way you described it. You can tell how orientated it is around value. And I think a lot of people listening refer to this as obviously like a proof of concept. And I've always had that challenge of, we've got hundreds of customers. Why do we need to prove the concept? The concept works, but hey, let's prove that this concept that works has value for you. That's a different conversation. And I love how it's clear to me all the way through you're relating back to, as you say, the criteria, decision criteria, and the metrics and the value that's there. So I can see why that's something that you guys, have as a big part of your playbook. And I think a lot of people listening will take a lot from that and maybe reflect on how they do similar things and how they can kind of embrace MEDDIC to be a tool that can really help them to increase their success rates, but also increase the efficiency in which they run those POVs as well.
The whole point is about accelerating, de-risking, and making sure there's value at the end of it. So you want to make sure that any POV is used to actually kind of accelerate a sales cycle, for example, and using MEDDIC supports that, because it allows you to be really clear and concise on the gaps as well, right? I hate a deal sheet that's all green, because if it's all green, it should have happened.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure there's gaps, and every week me and the team, we look at different deals, and we go through kind of where the gaps are, and then we build a plan on how we can go and alleviate those gaps. And whether it be, we don't have enough metrics, or who do we need to go to get those metrics? What metrics are going to be really, really strong? So yeah, we live and breathe by the deal sheets, the MEDDIC process, to make sure that we're giving good customer value and fair exchange of value for the customer. We're de-risking and we're accelerating, because that's what every software or hardware company wants to do.
Exactly right. Well, thank you very much, Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure. It was well worth waiting over a year to have you on. Thank you.
I haven't really done many of these, so I'm a little bit kind of like, when I watch it back, I'm sure I'll find it quite, that I said the right things. But no, hopefully that was useful. And it's great to meet you in person a couple of weeks back. Thanks for doing the session with the team. They loved it. And I walked around their books, which I can't be more thankful for.
It was the first in-person signing I've ever done. It felt a bit like, it felt a bit surreal, I would say, to do it. But no, thank you for that. And I think, are you still hiring? Where can people find you if they're...
We are still hiring. Obviously, we're building out team 3 at the moment. So get anyone to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with the right people. But no, we are still hiring, and we should be sort of seen to grow again next year. So yeah, super exciting, super great place to be. It's probably one of the best technology companies I've worked for, and I've worked for a few.
T-shirts.
Great T-shirts, amazing T-shirts, and great hats. But no, all joking aside, if you're passionate about technology, solving problems, and actually learning a skill that will set you up for the future to make everything possible, then I would say, definitely get in touch. But at the end of the day, if you believe in the process, you follow it and don't cut corners, it could change your life.
I love that.
So happy days.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much, Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure.